Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the BTC Unlocked podcast. I'm your host, Jason Hagholm, and today my guest is the boss lady behind BTC Fight Promotions, Shari Carruthers. Shari, you kicked off the podcast back when we started this a few months ago. Yes. It's only fitting to have you back on here as we've just wrapped up our final event for BTC Fight Promotions, BTC 26 out in Niagara Falls. Overall, I'd say for the promotion, 4 events, 4 great events as a whole. I mean, of course, we've run into some headaches along the way, but as always, BTC perseveres and puts on easily the best events in all of Canada. How would you assess this year so far, Shari?
It was a great year. We saw some fights that I think potentially could go down in the record books on regional MMA. We saw some up and coming athletes. There definitely were some that weren't surprises that we already knew were phenomenal athletes and that the fights were exactly what we had anticipated. Definitely looking forward to 2025 though.
Yeah, 2025 I think is going to be an exciting year, but before we can get there, let's look
Absolutely.
back. Let's look back here at 2024 with
Sure.
BTC. I mean, we started the year off in March in Kingston again. Kingston's been a nice market for BTC the past few years with BTC 23. A really strong card that had 10 fights on it, main evented by, Delano Taylor and Jordan Mean, 2 veterans of the sport. But we saw some good prospects on there. Tyler Grimsley moved to 8-0 on that card. Ethan Harrod put on a sensational performance close enough to his hometown. Anything else stand out from you from that event?
I think, Jordan Mean was somebody that, we had, kind of a fan and really wanted to watch him in person. Unfortunately, first round tore his bicep and couldn't move forward. Ethan Harrod, like you said, definitely a standout. And, we brought him back in Oshawa, I believe it was. We had him back in Oshawa. And, it was good to see, a couple of the Belleville boys. Unfortunately, one of the fights fell out and we couldn't proceed. But, and we're going to get a shot to see them again.
Yeah, and as well, talk about the importance of the Kingston market, because that's 2 years in a row now BTC has kicked off a calendar year in Kingston.
Mm-hmm. Kingston, truthfully, Kingston was never a city that I thought I would go to.
Yeah.
It was always Belleville. Belleville's my hometown. That's always where I thought, we would put on a show and, really struggled to get a venue that would accommodate us, let alone could accommodate us. And then I think through the grapevine at that time it was Leon Center. They had reached out to us and said, hey, if you can't find a spot there, come to us. So, our team made our way up there and they were phenomenal to work with. And, our first year there, it was, a phenomenal turnout. And, the university town really benefited us this time. And I think Leon Center really, and their marketing team worked with our marketing manager and our media manager, Patrick. And, they really put effort into the university town for us. And then, of course, our second year back, we only grew from there.
Yeah.
We only grew from there. And it was, you don't very often in regional see fans that come out that are just fight fans.
Right.
The fans that we typically see are fans of a certain athlete that's on our card. But definitely in Kingston, both years that we were there, we really saw fight fans.
Yeah.
They didn't necessarily know anybody that was on the card.
Yeah, and they were a loud venue for a big, OHL rink, slush
100%.
puppy plate, where the Frontenacs play out there, and always good atmosphere out there. And I think that's the lasting statement. Is it was you go to a market, that's what you kind of want to do, right? You go to a market and establish it, and you guys now kind of made a name for yourself. So if you ever go back, you have the track record now.
Absolutely, and you hope that with each university. It is hard, though, if we're depending on the university crowd.
Yeah.
You see those students leave.
Yep.
And, a new batch come in. But, I think, and again, I think it's one of the arenas that it was something no other venue has worked with us on.
Yeah.
Really, really driving to make sure that, they did everything they could to ensure that we were successful.
Yeah, and that's obviously key. You want the place and the you're in the city that you're partnering with to kind of be an equal tag team partner with you.
Absolutely,
and
absolutely.
And that's definitely what the vibe was with
and
them.
and I think for us too, we always seem to be there over St. Patty's Day
Yeah,
weekend, which definitely created a little buzz in the city, and I think we even saw some overflow from that.
Yeah, and I think that's the right time, especially as you said, Kingston's kind of a university town.
Right.
It's a big party weekend for those
Yeah,
students.
absolutely.
So nothing better than to kick off the weekend with some high quality regional MMA here in Kingston. And then, we transitioned in June to Burlington, which is always the home base of the show. Our big event of the year is June in Burlington. This was BTC 24, and I thought arguably one of the best shows of the year. I mean, you had Mel Zeman set the record for the fastest finish in BTC history at 19 seconds. We saw some familiar faces return, like Matt Smith, Nate Small, Jordan Texan, the guy that made his debut for BTC and had a sensational performance. And, of course, Tony Laramie won the BTC flyweight title in just 25 seconds.
Right.
So just a great event for, BTC's home base to take place and, push some new talent forward as well.
So I think, for me, definitely a standout. Like you said, there was many great fights that night, but Mel Zeman, and I think because, as, a fight promotion, finding women to fight on your card is very difficult. And to have somebody like her come in, with from out west and have a coaching staff that we've definitely seen fight and perform themselves, and I mean, but she knocked this girl out and hit her 2 more times before she even hit the canvas. And it was just something, and it was amazing. I spent a little bit of time with her after her fight, and she just she was really struggling just to bring that adrenaline down, and just so humble and so kind and so appreciative for that opportunity to perform in front of our crowd. Matt Smith, Matt Smith's a Belleville boy, and, for him to get back in that cage and to get that, that type of win, coming off a loss, and kind of, it was great for me to witness that.
Yeah, and, I think the thing for me with Mel, like, that was her first fight in 4 years. She relocated from Australia to Canada, and, you never know how it's going to go, after a 4-year layoff. There's usually cage rest with her. Not at all, as we said, 19 seconds. And what does that mean to you, too, to obviously, we've seen this record be topped a couple times, but now the fastest TK or KO in BTC history is held by a woman?
That means everything to me. I mean, I run a promotion in a male-dominated sport, and potentially one of the most male-dominated sports.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's always, for me, anytime we've had a female on the card, a woman on the card, and if we can move them forward in any capacity. But I mean, and I try to meet as many of the athletes on our cards as possible, but to really get that time to spend with her and to talk to her about her career and what she thought was next for her, and really it was an honor and a privilege, and I hope that the next person that breaks that record is another female.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
I would love that.
Yeah, I mean, especially just the history of what BTC's women's division has brought, like some of the most exciting fights, some of the most quality fighters that have graduated to bigger things, getting their start here. The women always bring it, and, Mel now sets the record for the fastest KO. And she's someone, obviously, I would love to see come back, because she, I think, has, so much potential that she didn't really get to show because the fight went under 20 seconds.
Right. And I think you'll definitely see Mel back.
Yeah. And as we said, of course, in the, main event there, Tony Laramie picks up the BTC Flyweight Championship in 25 seconds. So another quick finish. Mm-hmm. Tony has, obviously, gone on to do some big things now in Japan with Ryzen. But, his 2 fights in BTC, under a minute, 58 seconds combined, just the energy that he brought that evening was incredible. And
even, I think, just, as a fan of the sport, and you just can't help but watch him fight and just absorb him. It feels electric when he's in there, and especially afterwards, when he's done what he came here to do, and you just, if you weren't a fan, if you didn't know who he was, you definitely were when you left that night.
he's a flyweight that gets you excited because you think flyweight's more technical. Their fights tend to go the distance, but now with Tony, he'll come in there and he hits like a heavyweight, but he's 125 pounds.
100%. Yes. And another, I've been fortunate in this sport. I think I've met, I can probably only count on one hand those that haven't been appreciative and respectful, and he's definitely one of those guys that is always grateful for the opportunity.
Yeah, and he's you never see, it's rare to see a fighter just 2 fights and they went under a minute in the cage, and he's was ready for a big opportunity.
So happy
and
for
happy
him.
He's doing big things in Japan already with Ryzen. Already won a Noah there.
Absolutely, and it was wonderful to see him signing autographs and getting that notoriety that he's worked so hard for.
Yeah, he's been doing it forever. He's kind of like a phenom of the sport for how long he's been doing it.
Absolutely.
That was Burlington in June, and overall, we've had many events in Burlington in June. Where would you rank this one, Shari? We're back at the Central.
Ooh, I'm gonna say top 3.
Okay,
Top 3.
I'd say that's fair.
Top 3.
Yeah, I think it had the nice mix of, big names, big moments on the cards, and, some prospects that you get to look forward to that have a bright future, as we said as well. Jordan Texan kicked off the night, and I think that's a very special fighter for the future. And then, we transitioned into September with BTC 25 in Oshawa. Debut for BTC in Oshawa. What was the decision to go out to Oshawa?
Honestly, it wasn't necessarily a decision to go to Oshawa. We've talked about Oshawa a lot of times, just trying to find that right venue. I didn't even know Children's Arena existed, and it kind of came up with the commissioner had mentioned it to me. You should try here, and it was a great vibe. It really felt a lot like Central Arena to me.
Yeah.
It really had that kind of homey feel. It just, once I went and saw the venue for the first time, and Patrick and I went and we kind of did a walkthrough, and it really it felt like this is where we needed to be.
And that was a night, we saw Clay Pie in the main event get himself his first career KO in the first round over Cesar Bonilla, and then the fight everyone's talking about was Alex Sosa versus Ethan Hara. Just a sensational fight, back and forth. Unfortunately, it was a stop, due to a doctor stoppage there, but just great to see. Ethan showed why he's a talented fighter and why he's got a great future ahead, but Sosa coming back after a few 3 years away from fighting to put on a performance like that was just remarkable.
I would definitely like to run that fight back again. And see where it can go.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking about you cage fight, what were you thinking during watching that fight? Because me and Josh at the booth were just in astonishment of the action and the pace.
Absolutely. I think I was standing the majority of the time. I was standing the majority of the time, and it really, at one point in time, you just don't know who you're cheering for.
Yeah.
Right. You don't know, and again, I mean, somebody's got to lose, somebody's got to win, which is especially in this particular fight, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I think that's a fight a lot of people would like to see again. Their styles just meshed so well.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think if you just gave me a little bit of highlights out there, that'll get enough people to buy some tickets.
Yep.
We also had the heavyweights on that card as well. Matthew Longley got a big finish. But, Clay Pie in the main event, which we were talking about before, first finish for him via KO. I mean, I've said it on this podcast, said it on a mini broadcast. To me, he's the best prospect in this country right
Definitely
now
is.
with his wrestling background, and now he's putting the striking together. I mean, he's just an unstoppable force. Plus the personality. I mean, he's a complete package.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I think I think Clay is so well-rounded everywhere, including in front of the microphone and behind the scenes, and he grasped the concept of promoting himself on social media, and I don't think there's anybody that watches him or knows him can deny his talent.
Yeah, he's a promoter's dream. He does the work for himself, and he realizes that it's not just up to, as we talked the first time, a lot of people think, well, it's your job to promote me. Well, Clay gets that, no, I got to get myself out there.
And he wants to.
Yeah.
He genuinely wants to. It's not, you're not forcing him, you're not torturing him. He wants to do it.
Yeah, he should definitely, teach a class or something like
Absolutely
that on how to market
yes.
yourself there as well. And we also saw, someone like DeMonte Wilson make his pro debut and had a good performance there.
That was really fun to watch.
Yeah.
That was really fun to watch, and I think he has potential to be somebody pretty special.
Yeah.
And I think, he comes with a big following and very humble and very respectful, and, he knows where he comes from, and he knows what opportunity lays before him, which I think really can be dangerous for opponents.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, for a guy making your pro debut, he didn't show any nerves. He looked like he had 10 fights under his belt already. And then, of course, a fight we were talking about off camera, Gabe Sagman and Anton Petoskey. That was a great fight.
Yes.
Gabe gets a win, snaps a losing streak, but it builds into the next show, which we'll talk about now, BTC 26 in Niagara Falls. A show with only 6 fights, but 6 excellent fights.
Really was, yes, yeah. And I think it definitely, that show was a challenge from a promoter's point of view, and I think if Woodrow was here, he would tell you from a matchmaking point of view, and it was one of those things that a lot of times people don't see behind, don't get the opportunity to see behind the camera. But, we were putting fires out right, left, and center from the moment we arrived into Niagara Falls until we left. And I'm very proud that our team was able to pull off the kind of night that we had. And I think I don't know that I could say any of those fights weren't great.
No, I mean, I think that's the one thing. If BTC has a card with like 6 or 5 fights, it may be small in number, but big in quantity, and they always deliver.
Right.
As we said, Gabe had the win in Oshawa in September, now into November. Him and James Clark have a fight that was 5 years in the making, and I thought it was an excellent fight, and surprised us even in some aspects of it too.
Well, it surprised me that they stood.
Yeah.
I really thought that it was going to go to the ground. I thought it was going to go to the ground continuously. So I mean, to watch that fight. I mean, that fight I was on my feet for.
Yeah.
That fight as a fan, I was on my feet for. It was a brilliant fight.
It was an excellent fight. I mean, it was great to see James back in there, the original flyweight champion.
Absolutely,
and he, showed his whole tool set, showcasing his wrestling and grappling, but that he can still take a punch. Gabe rocked him in the second round early on with that uppercut.
I can't believe how much the two of them stood. And there wasn't, somebody said to me for that entire show that 6 fights, little to no one left.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody could argue that it wasn't a hell of a night.
It was a hell of a night. Plus, it was a really cool venue at the Americana Hotel, and I think that's kind of what I'm always going to remember probably about that event. Obviously, the fights were great, but how the location was, the venue, the atmosphere.
Yes.
I think it's something I maybe to strive for, those smaller, more intimate venues that give a more personal feel for the events going forward.
Yeah. It's one of those things that they can really work for us, but they can also cause, like this venue. So one of the behind the scenes things, typically our cage is center. We built a seating map based around the cage at the center, and then we get there and the chandeliers. The commissioner walked in and he said, "Nope."
Yeah.
Can't. Because you have to have a certain amount of clearance. You have to have a certain amount. If anybody decides they're not supposed to hop on the side of the cage, but we have to assume somebody's going to.
Yeah.
And, then we're shifting everything, which shifted our entire seating map. And it turned things into a little bit of a challenge as fans arrived.
Hey, BTC rolled with the punches,
though.
Well,
and that's it. I mean, the operation manager's running around going, but this, and I'm going, don't worry. We'll figure it out. Don't worry.
Yes,
don't worry.
That has been the motto for BTC basically since I've been here. It'll work. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, overreacting and panicking isn't solving the problem.
No, exactly. It's making it worse, if anything. And then, of course, the main event and the last fight here for BTC in 2024. Probably the best fight of 2024 for BTC.
Yes.
Adam Ascenda defended the lightweight title against Joash Walkins, a guy that, we didn't know much about. He had a
very little.
Good record, but, most of it was in the Caribbean. You weren't sure, can you really stack that up against someone of Adam's quality? But he just went out there and, took a really hard fight against Adam. And then Adam, in the third round, fought back and does what Adam does best, just makes it a complete war, just a sensational fight all around.
Yes.
And, Joash comes away and wins a unanimous decision to become the new champion.
I think didn't know very much about Joash, but I mean, I've known Dwayne Hines for a lot of years, and I think for Dwayne to throw his support behind somebody, I think I knew this guy was going to be a game opponent. He wasn't just a nothing. He was, that record he came by honestly.
Yeah.
And I really knew that I didn't know if he was going to stand or try and take Adam down. I thought it might have been a combination of it, just thinking kind of what Dwayne's, background is, not sure what that was going to come. But again, it was one of those things, like somebody said to me, our MVP, closed out our year with a hell of a night. Yeah. You can't, and I've said this a million times, I know that the belt went to Josh. He's our new lightweight champ, and you can't take anything from him. He deserved that. He deserved that, and Adam put on a hell of a show.
It was a typical Adam fight where there's moments in that fight I think any fighter probably gets finished, but Adam's able to just find that third or fourth gear and push forward to see the next round through. And I think if that fight maybe went an extra 2 rounds, because it was only 3 rounds, it would have been maybe a different fight. That's kind of where Adam looked like he was warming up, but it was only a 3-round fight, and that's not to take anything from Joash, who took a fight to Adam, landed some crazy elbows, showed off his speed, and wasn't afraid to just mix it up with one of the best strikers in Canada.
Absolutely. And, one of the things that the respect that I had from Joash even before I ever met him is that, we were trying to match him up long before Adam was available. And he would say no to nobody.
Yeah.
He said yes to every single fight we brought forward to him. It was the opponents that were saying no.
Yeah.
He said no. There wasn't one fight he said no. So, I respect any fighter that is here to fight.
And the other thing about Joash, too, he felt like he was a little too big for 155. He's a natural bantamweight that's been champion at 135 and 145.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's got to be exciting for you as a promoter. This is a guy that we can plug into 2 other divisions and fight top talent at 135 and 145.
Absolutely. But, in same hand, with that record, he could be gone sooner than later.
Yeah.
If we could get him back in the cage next year, that would be great. But I'd also be thrilled if he went on to a bigger promotion.
Yeah,
if he got that call. He's right at that record that, he could very well get that call.
And that age, too, where, the time 100%. Has to be now. But, you know what, maybe, this is the opportunity right now here in Canada because the sport's, basically almost non-existent in the Caribbean. Right here has the track record. I think these opportunities for him, I think, are big. But hopefully we get to see him back because there's a lot of fighters that you want to see back going into 2025, Shari.
Absolutely.
It's a big year ahead for us. And one of those guys is Clay Pye, who probably, I'd say, would be the breakout fighter of the year for the promotion this year.
He definitely is,
yeah,
I think.
As we said before, he's the complete package. And he also had another, first-round finish on that show at BTC 26. So.
Yeah, that was a heck of a fight, and he won Fight of the Night, So I think that was... spectacular fight for him.
So that was 2024, a year where, we moved around, got to some new venues, went back to some old places like Niagara and Kingston. And Niagara, too, you want to talk about a great market. Like, that is a perfect market to put MMA events on.
It really is. It really is. It was a little bit of a struggle this year, but it came down to injuries and illness, and it was just one of those things. And you can't control that.
No,
you can't control that. But Niagara is definitely a city that will gravitate back to, and it's nice and close to Burlington, which makes our life a little easier. Right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, great events all around. I mean, how would you rate this year overall, Shari? As we kind of ran down the card, some big moments, some highlighting some quality fighters and fights. 2024 for BTC was?
I think 2024 was a year of growth for BTC. I think we really kind of figured out and kind of hit our stride. And I think from an athlete point of view, it really put us in a position that we met some athletes that we can really throw our support behind and really help grow, through the next year, potentially the next 2 years.
Yeah, I feel like if you look at the matchmaking skills, I mean, shout out to Woody. He's not here, but shout out Woody.
Yeah.
He made some great fights.
He did.
We had multiple cards with, 10 fights or just a little bit more. It was just, as you said, the last show, 6, but that's injuries. That's nothing against Woody.
Yeah.
I know he takes it so serious.
He does.
He takes it a little too personal.
He took it personally, yes, I know.
But that's nothing of your fault. But, I think, as you said, a lot of athletes to work with in the future.
Absolutely.
But it just seems like every year the promotion continues to grow and find ways to get out of, some pickles that they're in, stuff like that.
Well, and I mean, I think the pickles is, like you said, I think we don't overreact, we don't panic, we figure it out, nobody, and I know when Woody feels like he's behind the 8 ball, he'll lean on us as a team, and we just keep reinforcing with the positive energy, and it's going to work out. You're going to figure it out. It's going to be fine. I've learned over the years how to extend a night if I need to. I've learned over the years how to power through a night. You just kind of adapt, you adjust, and I think that's what makes us a great team too.
Yeah, it's a small but mighty team here
Absolutely.
at BTC that always finds ways to get through some issues and put on great events. And
yes.
That's why, you've been able to put on 26 events, and now going into 2025 in March, your 27th event.
Right.
So
right.
Let's look ahead here to 2025. 2024 was a year of growth. What are we looking forward to here in 2025? Because I feel like 2025 is just a massive year ahead for the promotion.
I think what I really want for 2025, I really, somebody had sent me, what's your New Year's resolutions for BTC Fight Promotions. And I think 2025, I really want it to be about exposure. I really want to find those fans that don't know who we are. I really want to find those fighters that haven't had an opportunity to fight in a hometown. I really want to keep pushing to find fight fans, not just the fan of the fighter.
Okay. So how do you feel like what does the promotion need to do to, get that exposure out there? Because, you can always promote and stuff like that, but how do you get that exposure?
Yeah, it's one of those things that we've had a couple meetings, we're talking a little bit more about marketing and how we market ourselves, how we push ourselves. And I think it's also through sales. I think it's through sales, hitting those local businesses in the cities that we're going into, and just not just saying, here.
Yeah.
This is what, but, really taking the time to sit and talk to somebody. And I think that's something that we did, I think for the first time when we went to Kingston the first time, we went there with Siri, and we went there with Matt Smith, and Patrick and I went, and, we took a bunch of merchandise, and when we stopped for lunch, we stopped and talked to people, and we left, hand wraps and toques, and, everywhere we went to a donut shop, and, we went to some other local gyms, and we really put forth the effort just to kind of talk to everybody and let them know who we are and when we're coming, and I think that can go hand in hand with sales. So, I mean, it's important to have those sponsors and those sales, but I think it's important to spend time, to spend that time and really talk to them about who we are and what we can do for them and what they're going to get from joining the BTC Fight family.
Yeah, and as well, too, Shari, it seems like there's big things ahead for the sport in 2025. We've talked about amateur.
Yeah.
It seems like that probably starts in 2025.
Yeah. I think we should expect an announcement sooner than later. And you're gonna see amateur back, which is huge for our sport. But thankfully, you're also going to see some changes for the pro aspect of thing. You're going to see licensing change. You're going to see medical change. You're going to see a couple rules through the sport change that I know our athletes have been, pleading for a lot of years.
Yeah, I think the licensing thing to me is just absolutely massive, not just for the fighters themselves, but for you as a promoter to bring in some, fighters for like the guys that are up there at those tough, like a Clay Pie, for example, tough to make a fight with for someone here in Canada, but there's someone out there in the States, but now the licensing is a little bit easier for them to come in.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that we can't get anybody even from Quebec. You can't sign multi-fight deals because there's no value in them to sign a multi-fight deal. I can't get them, a second fight potentially in the course of a year. I can't when they have to get relicensed every time.
Yeah.
And it's not just the licensing, it's all the medicals. And I've said a million times, when you have to do a CT and you have to do another CT, and then what happens if you get injured and you're doing a CT? At some point in time, it doesn't make sense. It's not, I don't think any doctor is going to do that.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
As well, you kind of were maybe hinting at it, but the last show we had in Niagara, I know that was a show potentially on the last of the original New Jersey rules. are we improving the rule sets to up to date where, there's now
Yes.
been the changes to the down fighter rule and,
Yeah.
12 to 6.
Yes.
Are we going to see changes like that going forward?
You will see changes like that.
Okay, I think that's for the best. I mean, as the sport evolves, the province has to evolve as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
It's been a long time coming. So yeah, I think you definitely are going to see changes like that, and it's going to make things so much easier. It's going to make it, the medicals is something that needs to come, and I can say from a promotional point of view, there have been times that I have been grateful that our medicals have been the way we are. We've got some issues for athletes that allowed them to manage that and take care of that potentially they wouldn't have been aware of. It didn't really have anything to do with the fighting aspect. It was the process that they went through that made those things aware. But for the most part, it's going to change the sport for us.
Yeah,
It really is.
I think these rule changes and regulation changes, and with the potential of amateur coming back, it just feels like the sport in Ontario is going to start to go up the roller coaster.
It's going to make us so much more competitive in the world. And I've said, over and over again, and the thing that excites me the most, and has always excited me, is to propel any athlete that's hit our cage, or not even our cage, but to see an Ontario athlete, to see a Canadian athlete get to the UFC or to Bellator or to any other big stage, and as a Canadian, I'm proud of that. But I've said a million times, can you imagine if we can start a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old in the sport, and they stay dedicated to it? Can you imagine the type of athletes that we'll be putting forth for consideration?
Yeah.
And we should be looking at how many Canadian athletes can we get to these higher levels. That should be every promotion's.
Yeah, I think I was talking with Josh actually over the weekend. It's kind of like with how amateur hasn't been a thing. It's like Canada kind of fell behind because of that, because you had to go take your amateur fights out in the States, or you rush into pro a little bit too soon, and there was that wave in the late 2000s, early 2010s, but then Canada kind of went a little stagnant. I know the pandemic had a big part to do with that as well. But you look at other countries like Australia, or Brazil's always going to be a big factor, but they've just continued to succeed where Canada kind of leveled off. Now with these changes, it feels like, hey, the next wave of prospects will be there, and then waves after them will come.
And you can potentially, I think it's, we're probably going to be 2 years out before we start seeing the effect of the promotion, the amateur aspect of things. Will be 2 years before we start seeing, that type of growth. But, I want to see that sport have worlds. I would love to see that. I would love that sport to have worlds. There's just so much potential. And even for, MMA gyms. And I think about COVID. You mentioned COVID and MMA gyms and how hard it was for a gym to sustain. Having amateur back is a game changer. Yeah. It's a game changer. It could bring every athlete who, is young and wants to, to grow through this to the guy that's been watching UFC his whole life and it's been on his bucket list.
Yeah.
And I think that's, I don't know, it's been a long time coming, and it's been a lot of work putting it all together, but I can't wait. I can't wait.
I can't wait either, and just to see, the next crop of fighters come out here that'll, plus two for you. You get an amateur series going, and then they transition to BTC in the pro side.
Absolutely.
And you've just been building them up from since their birth in the sport, basically.
Right, exactly. And that's what we need. And I mean, that's been my issue since I started on the combat committee, is that, as a promotion, the only born and raised promotion in this province right now, that if we don't create a feeder system, it's not going to exist anymore.
Yeah.
It's not going to exist anymore. It's not financially sustainable to fly in an entire blue corner.
No, exactly.
It's just not financially sustainable. And I know we talked about, going, before amateur was back, that, you'd go to the States, but the States needed to have you. And a lot of times they didn't need you.
Yeah.
Because they had so many athletes to choose from.
Yeah.
They didn't need you, and potentially you're coming, but you're not selling tickets.
No, you're just there to be a body.
Yeah, you're not selling tickets. So, I mean, a lot of times those opportunities weren't even available for our athletes.
Yeah, so that's what excites me about 2025.
Absolutely.
And as well, for BTC in 2025, we've already announced 3 out of the 4 locations and dates for those shows. I mean, you said, you're from Belleville. That's where BTC is going to start 2025 off. I mean, that's a long time coming. That's a dream come true, really, for you, Shari.
It really is. It's one of those things that I've always said when I started this, just one show.
Yeah.
If we only ever do just one show there, then I'm happy. So yeah, we'll be at the Belleville Armories, and I can't wait. I'm going down over the holidays, and that's what I'm going to spend a lot of my holidays doing.
Preparing, yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, that's exciting. I mean, I think it's once again a new market to explore, a good sports town as well. Obviously, more so on the hockey side of things.
Yes.
But I think you come in with a new market, and someone like a Matt Smith who's from there, you can always change people's minds and get them to come and check out how great MMA is.
Well, and that's it. And I mean, I think since we've started using some of the athletes from Belleville, I've seen even some growth in a couple of the gyms there, with a few that are heading into pancreation shows, and seeing more and more of those athletes where perhaps they would come with one to a pancreation show, and now they're coming with 4 or 5. And that's huge. That's huge. That means that in that city, this sport is going to grow. In that city, this sport potentially is going to thrive.
Yeah, and that's all you can really ask for, especially
Absolutely.
going into a new market and things of that nature. Of course, June, once again, Burlington, and that's always, as we said, a special event.
Yeah.
Some of the biggest and best moments for the promotion's history have come at that June show in Burlington.
Absolutely. That's, we talked about shows, but I think, like you had said, where does that June show rank? And I said top 3. But I mean, for me, the first Burlington show will never be replaced, because they were my first belts.
Yes.
They were the first time I handed out belts. They were the first time we had belts. And, for me, that show, I'll never forget that show.
Yeah, you can just run down, BTC 3, as you said, the first show with belts. I'll always remember BTC 20 in Burlington, and more so the Adam Polo Reyes fight. And,
absolutely.
And, we had our first couple of heavyweight fights there as well. A lot of great
first marriage proposal.
Yes, that as well. We did have that. Many great moments for this promotion have come here in Burlington.
Absolutely.
And as well, you're going to where I just can't remember right now. Escaping the last show of 2025 will be
RBC Place in London.
Right, back to London, which is another great fight town, great sports town, and we were there in 2022 and had a great show there as well.
Yes.
Back at that venue too, which was an awesome venue as well.
Yes. So we'll be looking, we'll be working with Faisal as well during that show. So with for to knock out the kidney disease, so we'll be supporting him and working with him, and I'm sure he'll make his way onto the card as well. So
I'm sure as well. Yeah.
I think there's a tie that needs to be broken right now, so we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, that's where we'll close out our year, and that was a wonderful facility to work with. So I'm really looking forward to going back there.
And then, I guess to wind things down here, you're excited for the prospect of amateur, moving forward, with more events and, amateur events as well. Guys, summarize, what's on the horizon here overall. What can we really expect here for BTC in 2025? More great fights, more big events.
More great fights, more big events. We'll you'll see us probably dip our toe into amateur a little bit. We still have one other city that we need to announce. We got a couple little things in the works there. We'll see, when we hopefully in the next month or so we'll get that ironed out. And just even combat sports. You're going to see not just amateur MMA. You're going to see combat sports in this province as a whole really change and really develop and really grow.
Yeah, I think that's what excites me too. It's not just the MMA. I think it's just right now it's bubbling right now for combat sports in the province of Ontario.
Yeah, absolutely. You're going to see it all change. You're going to see pro boxing change, and you're going to see, jiu-jitsu have another outlet, and you're going to see Muay Thai have another outlet. So there's lots of wonderful things coming for the combat community.
Well, that makes me very excited for a big 2025 ahead. 2024 was a great year, but 2025 seems to be the biggest year yet for not just BTC, but combat sports as a whole.
Absolutely.
Shari, thank you for your time.
Thanks,
and
Jason.
We'll definitely have you on later on in the beginning of the new year in 2025 for some more big announcements for BTC and as well with combat sports as a whole. Thank you for everything, Shari.
Thanks, Jason.